Hello and welcome to this session on Ayurvedic nutrition. And I'm going to spend the first part of this just talking about Ayurveda and nutrition according to Ayurveda. And then we're going to do the Kitchari cook along or demonstration, depending on whether you've got your ingredients ready. So thanks again, guys, for joining me. And thanks to those that are going to be joining this as a recording afterwards. Alrighty, so I'm Natalie, and I have been incorporating Ayurveda for a few years now into my diet and lifestyle. And I have been a yoga teacher for over 10 years. And my mum was a yoga teacher and gave me lots of seeds, if you like, or a fertile ground to grow the interest in both yoga and Ayurveda. But I lost my way in I guess that holistic living in my 20s, and I became quite stressed and depressed, anxious, and with chronic gut health issues that led to autoimmune issues as well. And it wasn't until I realized I was in a toxic job, relationship and friendship circle that I made some changes and then committed wholeheartedly from my 30s into yoga and Ayurveda. And now, having experienced the transformational benefits of both of those practices together, I then became a yoga teacher first to share that, and then more recently Ayurveda. And so I'm an Ayurvedic practitioner now, obviously, and trying to use the principles in raising my family. Easy for me, but not so easy for children. So hence the trying to. So again, throughout this session, I'll talk some formalities, but I want to sort of also have this as informal as well. If you feel like asking questions, you guys on live, please feel free, and I can tailor to your needs. And I'll be really, really happy for that to be interactive. If that's something that you want to do, pop on your audio or in the chat. Sometimes I forget to look at the chat when I'm presenting. So just like maybe just let me know if I didn't answer your question, if that is in the chat. And for those that are looking on the recording, just feel free to reach out if you've got questions, if I don't cover them in this session. I'm going to present a short presentation, and the reason for that is I want to stay on track and make sure I don't waffle on or lose focus. So I can see you, Mel. Can you put your thumb up if you can see Ayurvedic nutrition on the screen? Cool. All right. So this is just a quick presentation so I can be guided. Today we're going to talk just an introduction to what is Ayurveda, some info about Ayurvedic nutrition, and then we'll get into the Kitchari. We'll talk about the ingredients and recipe, some preparations for Kitchari. And I understand that both of you do cook Kitchari, so I'd love this to be interactive, and you can talk to me about your ingredients, what you have and what you don't have, and any questions along that way. And then we'll actually do the cook along, and I'll move the video to the stove over here and the oven's over behind me as well. So I'll be moving around just a little bit. So I've introduced myself already, and the Ayurvedic practices that I offer are a lifestyle, diet, and self-care. In these sort of sessions, so in workshops, I'll do lots more of those over this year coming up, like this, and also face-to-face. I do Ayurvedic body work, and I teach yoga. I'm based in both Selby and Fitzroy, but I live in Selby in the Dandenong Ranges, near the National Park, with my son and 2 dogs. So I'd like to start with a quote about what is Ayurveda, according to one of really great authors, Dr. Frawley. So Ayurveda is a holistic medical system, and it applies all aspects of health, including physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual aspects of the self. So it's completely different to the Western medical system that might only look at one of these aspects of yourself, and likely not the latter. It encompasses, it's an integrated system. So when you work with an Ayurvedic practitioner, or you use the principles in your own practice, you're not just looking at, your physical nature, but we're looking at how your physical nature is impacted by your emotional, mental, and spiritual fulfillment otherwise. And when one of those aspects is out of balance, then we experience all of the other aspects of us out of balance. And so Ayurveda is interested in our whole self. And so, yeah, you certainly, if you're going to work with a practitioner, it's a deep experience, and it can take time because we're not looking at a one size fits all or just part of yourself. We're looking at your whole self. The origins of Ayurveda are that it is from ancient India and thought to be recorded around 5,000 years ago in the Vedas. In the Vedic period, 5,000 years ago, in resource documents referred to as the Upanishads. And this is part of the ancient India's history and recorded. So we actually have evidence that it was cited around 5,000 years ago. There's some debate about it. It could be that it's 3,000 years old, but nevertheless, it's India's ancient folk medicine. And it was used together with yoga. So it was at the same time and recorded in the same source reference documents. So over 5,000 years ago. And because it was recorded 5,000 years ago, it may have been unrecorded even longer than that. Now, it is thought that, or it is evidence that it is the oldest documented medical system in the world. Not to say it's the oldest medical system, but it's the oldest documented medical system in the world. The word Ayurveda, and you can say that however it rolls out of your mouth, Ayur is life. And Veda is knowledge. And so it is the knowledge of life. As opposed to yoga, yoga means union. And yoga is interested in your physical nature and your spiritual nature. And when we have a life in this material world that we live in, it's very common that we disconnect and we become a little, preoccupied with our material nature and discard what is our spiritual nature. So yoga is a creating union of our spiritual and material nature through its number of practices. So primarily yoga was a spiritual practice, while Ayurveda was the medical system to enable yoga, recognizing the many imbalances that come about through that material experience. One of the fundamental principles of Ayurveda is that we recognize our material world being comprised of the 5 great elements. And they are the ether or space, air, fire, water, and earth. And it's believed that it's observed that these 5 great elements can be identified or recognized in the whole, in all living beings, from plants to soil to waters, and all animals. And it's not that you don't see it really specifically in all things. You see the energy associated with the 5 great elements in all living things. And all living things have a unique elemental composition. And for us as humans and also all other beings, that affects how we eat, how we sleep, grow, think, feel, be, and create. So if, for example, when we look at our individual self, we consider that we are all of the 5 great elements energetically. And if I have more of the earth element represented within me, I'm probably going to be feeling heavy, stagnant, maybe a little boggy, immobile. These are the energetic qualities of earth. But if I was to have more ether at the other end of the scale, so space, I might be feeling quite ungrounded, airy fairy, or like, a little spacious, maybe even feeling with vertigo or not able to make decisions very well, just because I don't have those more stable qualities at the other end of the scale, earth. And that is if I was with greater ether, elemental energy. So we can track the gross or more subtle aspects of the elements, and we can look at how they present within us. We are all elements, but it's very common that we are at a balance, or we have more dominance in certain elements. And the way in which we look at that in Ayurveda is to identify the doshas. The word dosha itself means state of balance. And we use this reference to determine what is our state of balance based upon which of those elements are more dominant within us. Have you heard of the doshas before? Yep. Yeah. Cool, thanks. So there are 3 doshas, that is Vata, Pitta, and Kapha dosha. And we use these as reference points in Ayurveda to look at what is that state of balance of elemental energy. So with Vata dosha, we have more air and ether energy. In Pitta, we have more fire and water, and in Kapha, we have more earth and water. So with Kapha, which has those more dense energies of earth and water, when you're in balance and you have the Kapha energies in dominant, you're going to be calm, nurturing, and fairly grounded. But when out of balance, you might be indulgent, you might be wanting more of the foods and those gross energies. You might be overweight because of that. You may have a greed associated. Just trying to move my screen things around a little. The emotional energies would be that you may have envy or greed, attachment, and physically that it can result in mucus, obesity, and sinus-related problems. With Pitta, with a fire element, with water being dominant, when you're in balance and you're Pitta dominant, or your fire water, your Pitta dosha, you're going to be fairly strong and motivated. If you think about those positive qualities of fire, for example, having courage and conviction to get out there and do the things you need to do, strength, motivation, and also compassion. When you're out of balance, then you can think about, when the fire's overheating, for example, that can result in inflammation in the body, red skin and irritations, Emotionally can lead to stress and anger. And that's because you're trying probably to do too much. You've got that too much of that courage and conviction. And that can lead to burnout, that word using the reference to fire. And if you're Vata, you might experience qualities of being adaptable and creative, enthusiastic and fun. These are qualities of somebody with Vata in balance. And you find that you're one of the doshas, or you might be a combination of the doshas. And sometimes that can be working very well for you, and you can have those positive associations of those doshas. But very often it can be out of balance. That is, that there's too much of that particular dosha going on. And so for Vata, that can be that you have that fear and anxiety. Insomnia, you might find it hard to get to sleep because it could be some racing thoughts or just that sense of ungroundedness, which leads to lack of routine and a little bit of chaos going on in your life. You have a lot of half-finished projects, and this can lead to physically constipation, dry skin. So these are just some of the common things associated with the doshas, but it's really also natural for you to experience a combination of the doshas. These are some physical characteristics of the doshas. With the Vata, tend to have a more skinny framework and less strength, really light, sometimes cold. With Pitta, you can have a little bit more strength, be athletic. These are very generalized observations, by the way. And Kapha, a little more heaviness, softness in body, not just in the soft tissues, but in the bones as well. So it can be just a tendency for a larger frame, for example. And that would be the same for the men. So we do recognize that everybody is different. We are affected by the elements and categorized per the doshas. But according to Ayurveda, disease occurs when we live out of balance with the natural order. So we recognize that we have got some certain tendencies, but we want to try to bring about a balance of those elements, recognizing that we don't want to all be the same. You're born with a particular tendency, and that's completely perfect for you. Your body will always want to come back to what is your natural tendency and to have a representation of each of the elements without one or the other way out of balance. So that is that disease occurs when we live out of balance of what is that natural order. So to create balance, we're interested in observing what are those tendencies and what are the stress factors associated with those tendencies. And you're constantly changing. Nature is constantly changing. We'll never be the same. And so the seasons change us, age changes us, stress and trauma changes us, and lifestyle choices, habits and diets change us as well. So it's never that we're in balance and we can expect to remain in balance. We're always going to be challenged with, that balancing game. And we can accept that sometimes we're going to have more of those particular elements represented within us. But we will use Ayurveda to try to create, where possible, that balance in order to avoid disease. So this is what it's all about, is about avoiding disease, and Ayurveda aims to prevent disease. And Ayurveda, another quote, shows us how to live in harmony with our natural constitution to prevent disease and fulfill our soul potential. And that ties us back to that spiritual nature of us that's really, really fundamental in both yoga and Ayurveda working together. So you can fulfill your life potential and be the strongest version of yourself that you can possibly be to do that. I wanted to talk before we jumped into nutrition about the seasons, because it's really fundamental to what is one of those stresses that's constantly changing around us. We recognize we are nature, and nature's constantly changing. And one of the major ways that we experience that change is through the seasons. So just wanted to highlight to you that doshas dominate depending on the different seasons. We are in summer at the moment, and I think it's probably poignant that we talk mostly about that. You know, it's hot and dry conditions at the moment in summer. We've had a bit of rain, but that also lends itself to pitta dosha, which is dominant fire and water element. And so in summer, if you didn't know your individual constitution, you would instead look to what was going on in nature. And in summer, pitta dosha is going to dominate. And the association issues with pitta dosha, if you recall, are that you can be stressed because you're trying to do too much. There's more hours in the day, right? So you've got more activity. You might have more projects tasks to do, socializing. So you can get stressed, burnt out. It can result in dry skin, more inflammation, leading to runny stool rather than constipation. And you're more heat sensitive. We're going to move soon into the Vata season, which is autumn, where you can feel more ungrounded, restless, with anxiety. And that sort of nature can lead to dry skin and constipation, poor circulation, and cold sensitive. And then in both winter and spring, you tend toward kapha dosha. And you know how in winter, you have a greater appetite. So you're eating more, you might bulk up a little more. That's the energy of kapha, which is softer, larger frame, feeling heavy, perhaps, weight gain, depression, leading to greed, attachment, envy. Those are the things we talked about before with the doshas. So we'll use that when we talk in a moment about our Kitchari recipe, because the recipe that I'm offering you is a summer-friendly recipe. But to summarize, my bad. Sometimes when I do that, excuse me, can you still hear me? Because I just muted. Yep, okay. Which means I might not hear you. So I'm going to unmute that, and excuse me if the bell goes off again. So there's sorts of remedies that we're interested in. They're all natural, 100% natural for Ayurveda. However, it can be a complementary system. So you may be working with the Western medical system, and this can be complementary, where we will use lifestyle choices, habits, rituals, including morning, evening, and seasonally specific lifestyle practices, nutrition, which we'll specifically talk about in a minute, regulating the nervous system, so managing stress and other emotions. We use herbal medicine. The spirituality component comes into per yoga. We also do body work and cleansing and detoxification practices daily, seasonally, and annually. For some, it's not annually, it might be more like 7 years. And that's panchakarma, which I won't be talking about in detail today. I will talk about in spring workshops, though, because that's a key practice in spring, is the cleansing and detoxification. So this is just a summary of some of the things you'd expect in Australia in Ayurvedic remedies. In India, there's a greater breadth of remedies you experience, and this is about creating balance and avoiding disease. All right, we're going to jump into nutrition. I can smell something in my oven. I'm just going to have a quick look at that. You might want to stretch or take a cup of water if you want to. I've turned that right down now. I'll talk about what that is in a moment. All right, so Ayurvedic nutrition, the key, the fundamental outcome of Ayurvedic nutrition is to boost your digestive strength. It is the key to your health and vitality. There is nothing more important in any of the Ayurvedic protocols than maintaining a strong digestion. It is at the center, at the heart of Ayurvedic principles. When your digestion is strong, then your tissues are fully nourished and you can thrive in your capacity for your whole being. When it is weak, there is little nourishment of your tissues, low immunity, and most likely an accumulation of toxins that occur when your food is not digested. And this therefore leads to your disease. There's a common saying in the Western world, or just commonly, you are what you eat. And that may be true, but Ayurveda suggests more than that. You're not just what you eat, you are what you digest. Because you might be eating incredible foods, you might be having supplements, you might be ticking all of the boxes, but if you're not digesting it, there's no point. So we work with strength of digestion, and it has to be unique to your individual, preferably. But if I'm not working with you individually, then you can look at to the seasons. So we're constantly changing. You're unique, but the seasons and nature are unique. And that really impacts your strength in digestion. Signs of your digestive system impaired is any gut imbalance, and that could be bloating, gas, constipation, nausea, acidity, like heartburn, loose stools, sense of heaviness, not feeling hungry or over hungry, tired or foggy after meals. So any of that we would associate that their gut health signs. But beyond that, it could be that you're feeling low in energy, weak or fatigue, have a tendency for congestion, low immune system. So when you're unable to get over the colds and flus very well. Genetic disorders become realized, and otherwise they would be dormant. Autoimmune diseases triggered, emotional imbalances, hormone imbalance, and infertility. These are all signs of your digestive system or your strength is low. This is contributed from your diet, lifestyle, genetic factors, stress, and emotions. And the key to all of your remedies is consistency. So this is not a one size fits all, and it's not a band-aid. It's not like you would do it today and then you wouldn't do it tomorrow. Ayurveda, this is the hardest part for most people. It's a way of life. It's not like a fad diet that you'll move on from. It is a new way of life to create that strength in digestion. And it's not just what you eat and how you eat. These are 7 tips for general Ayurvedic nutrition, which I'm not going to go in great detail, but I'll touch on just quickly because I want to get into the cooking. We suggest that you would eat your main meal at lunch. And by the way, I've got a fact sheet I'll send as a follow-up. So your strength of digestion is the greatest at lunchtime. So you would eat the main meal at lunch, and then you'd have smaller or easier to digest meals either side of that, and 3 meals a day usually for most. We cook all food because it's easier to digest. Remember, raw food might be more nutritious, but you can't digest it. It's very hard to digest. So we cook everything. We include all 6 tastes into a meal because that encourages digestion and enables satiation. So you don't want more. You know, you have that sense of satisfaction and you stop eating rather than keep eating or looking for snacks because you're unsatiated. We create space between meals. So rather than snacking, no snacking. It's a mental thing for most of us. It's something we've even been sold by the big food industry. We don't snack because we allow space for your digestive system to do its job, have a rest, recover, and prepare for the next meal. And you can't do that when you're eating all day. Try telling an 8-year-old son. We avoid distraction while eating, so we give food its respect. We don't try to overeat. We want to try to maintain a bit of space in the digestive system to enable digestion. And if it's overloaded, it's like you put the fire out. And that's the same reason we don't drink water at mealtime. We reserve time for drinking water between meals. And usually an hour after and an hour before meals is a better time to be taking the hydration rather than with a meal. That's a quick summary. I could actually spend an hour on it on that, but I'll give you a fact sheet and you can learn more about it. We talked about the 6 tastes, and I'm going to jump into our Kitchari conversation now. It's actually a very easy meal to cook. So we are halfway through the session, and we are now going to spend this time talking about Kitchari, which is a really easy meal to digest for all doshas, so and all seasons. But we can tweak it for different doshas and for different seasons to make it more medicinal for you. It's highly nourishing. So the ingredients are simple, but really nourishing. And because it's easy to digest, it's even more nourishing because the benefits actually get into your tissues to build your strength and vitality. Tridoshic means that all doshas can eat it. It is detoxifying. It restores digestive strength. It's used medicinally after illness. So if you were to go to an Ayurvedic hospital, you would be served probably a more soupy version of one you can see there that's even more easy to digest. The ingredients that I sent or popped onto that Facebook thing, and I will send you also here. So I'll talk to the fundamentals of these now. Aged basmati rice. Aged basmati rice is easier to digest than not aged. And this is aged basmati rice from the supermarket. You can get better quality at an Asian grocer or in an Ayurvedic supplier online. Soaked or sprouted mung bean. I might turn this off now so you can see. This is my sprouted mung bean. Oh, yeah. So you can see that was half a cup and it's tripled pretty much. I sprouted them on Thursday. I started soaking them on Thursday. Now, when it's winter, they do not have such a big sprout. Where's my other one? Oh, my other one's in the oven. I did another one last night, and it's not necessary that you sprout them. I'll send you information about how to sprout, but basically I just cover it with water and change the water daily. And I just use a bowl. I don't use like a special sprouting thing. The benefits of sprouting is that you can see here, this is brand new life. This is called prana. It's full of prana because there is new life here. And if you had any dodgy mung, it would not sprout. So it's also a way of, increasing the prana or life force in your food. It also breaks down, it releases or removes a toxin that is in the mung otherwise. And so there's a little bit of different opinion on sprouting or not sprouting. At the very minimum, you would soak it overnight. And I sprout mine. I like sprouting them. I'm just heading back into that presentation. Can I check with you, Mel? You can see that it's back. Cool. And the spices, you can use what you're drawn to. We had a chat before, didn't we, Mel, about the things that you're drawn to? Definitely. I mean, these could be indicators to you of things you need, but it's sometimes indicators of things that you don't need. We can talk about the actual energetics of spices another day, but I pop all my spices at the beginning of the season. I don't know if you can see that. That is a little container that I like to use with my spices, and I pretty much use it for everything. So what we're using today are coriander seeds. Coriander seeds, whole. I like them whole. You can ground them. As soon as you ground them, you would use them. So you wouldn't have them sitting in the pantry grounded, because that would be, they're fresher, freshly ground. Cardamom, and fennel seeds. Those three are excellent for summer. And if anything, if you will feel the effects of pitta dosha in summer, as I mentioned before, you could have more of those seeds than the others if you wanted to. So remember, it's a medicinal for the season or your dosha. And those top three there, coriander, cardamom, and fennel, are cooling seeds. They're very good for digestion, and they help manage pitta dosha. Caraway is very good for pitta. They're all good, but from turmeric, mustard seeds, hing, salt, cinnamon, and fresh ginger, these are heating. So in the summer, we want to make sure that we've got the cooling ones in there as well, or at least moderating or not using too many. So you can see half a teaspoon, that's not a lot of each of them. It's actually, it's quite a moderate. If this was a spring meal, I would actually be putting 1 teaspoon of each of them in. So I'm already moderated, which, okay, let's talk about Nevedia, because it's really tasty, isn't it? And the ingredients otherwise are not. Rice and mung, they're not that tasty. There's a little bit of vegetable that they put on it. They will be using significantly more spices to create that taste. That's great for a commercial business and gets you going back, because it tastes so good and it's okay. That's great. It's really good. But for this to be medicinal in summer, you don't actually want heaps of spices. You really don't need them, and it could dry you out if you're using too many heated spices and create more pitta problems. Ghee, this is one I made yesterday. I actually overcooked it, so it's browner than usual. It's more a golden color. It's hot, so it's melty still. You can use coconut oil if you don't have that. Hing, we were just having a chat about. It is a resin, and it's not easy to get, and it stinks. It's highly pungent. It's an excellent one for autumn, winter, and spring. It's not one that you would use heaps of in summer. In saying that, all of these are highly medicinal and excellent for your digestive system. In summer, you just want to avoid those hot, pungent ones or too much of them. We're going to use water, and we're going to use some seasonal veggies, and that's what's in my oven right now. I like roasted vegetables. I'm going to probably pull them out in a sec, because they've been in there for a little while. And what's seasonal at the moment in Melbourne are beans, beetroot, carrot, zucchini, corn, silver beet, and other bitter greens. Coriander, really cooling, excellent for summer, but you might drop that off in autumn. Lime, another cooling herb or food, medicine, as opposed to lemon. Lemon is heating, lime is cooling. So I would only use this in summer. I wouldn't use this otherwise. I only use this in summer. Instead of coriander in autumn, I might use basil, which is heating, as opposed to coriander. Again, this is about its medicinal impact to create balance and avoid imbalance and disease, which will lead to the other. Now, I love ghee. So I use extra as well. And please excuse me, Kim, you had a question.
Natalie, sorry, can I interrupt?
Yeah.
In relation to the mung beans that you've been soaking, I had been using a recipe that had mung dal. So they're the little tiny yellow ones. And I do soak them overnight, but I know the mung beans, they're the bigger ones, and I mean, these mung dal definitely don't sprout. Do you think this mung dal is a little bit more processed and therefore go the mung bean?
Is it split?
It does. I think it's split.
If it's in
Oh
half,
no, they look whole.
I'll
They're
go
just
get my
little
whole
yellow.
ones. Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to show them or just in your palm? I can have a look because mine's the same. I'll just go grab mine.
They're tiny little guys.
Yeah. They are. I've got mine here. Oh.
Yeah, yours are green too.
Yeah.
So can you see that?
Oh yeah. No. Mung dal. And they're red, are they? Oh, they're yellow.
Yellow.
I feel because I don't know 100%, but the skin is green and the seed itself is yellow. So
Yep.
you might be onto something there. It might be hulled.
Yeah, I think it's just split and dried, Kim.
Dried.
I think it's the same.
So yes, it's going to be more processed. It may actually be easier to digest, but it's not going to have the vital life force that we're interested in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it doesn't sprout, that's for sure.
Yeah. See, for me, that's what I really love about sprouting. I see
I love that too.
Yeah, I see, there's basically brand new life there. That's like potent for yourself. Now, some people eat them raw. I cannot. I get gassy. So I sprout them and always overcook them to make them mushy. And you still get that life contained within the meal. And they're much easier to digest. Yeah. That's my instinct. It's split and dried. And they will be fine, and they're commonly used. Preference for
I'll
hot.
cook with them today, but I'll go and get your ones next
completely.
week.
Yeah. And what I showed you, I mean, this has tripled in size, and I wasn't really expecting such a big sprout, to be honest, but it's been quite warm. I'm at my mum and dad's at the moment. So I live in the Dandenong Ranges, and normally it doesn't get that warm. So I wouldn't have done that, actually. That's probably a bit more. It makes them a little bit more astringent, which does have an energetic effect. And I won't go into that, but they're fine. They're going to be absolutely beautiful today. Thanks for your question.
Thank you.
All right, so that's the ingredients and the recipe. There's a few ways you can do it. I'll talk to 2 different ways today.
Oh, sorry to interrupt, just a quick one. You can get the organic mung beans down in Baronia in the place that sells this sort of stuff that you do buy in your own jars and stuff, and also at Mountain Gate just up the road. So
cool.
there's 2 places there that have organic.
Thanks for sharing. What I might do is get a list of all the places, so no matter where you are, you can find that easy to get. Great, thanks for sharing. Because Laura had some trouble getting what she needed too. So I'll make sure that I'll give you online options as well as some physical places, and I'll get you to pop that in the, I'll just prompt you afterwards, Mel, and you can, if you feel like it, let us know where they are.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, so there's a few different ways you can do it. This is a way I like to do it because it feels easy for me. Now, on my list of desirables is a pressure cooker. It would be game change. Have you guys got a pressure cooker? Yeah, so it would game change completely my Kitchari process, which I'm due for, but I don't have one. So it would be a completely different conversation if we were having pressure cooker meal today, but we're not. We're doing a combination of stovetop and oven. So I have preheated the oven at 140. I often don't preheat because it's such a low heat anyway. But if you're wanting to cook along, pop your oven on around 140 degrees. And to start with, I'll just talk this through and then I'll actually do it. In a heavy based pan, I melt the ghee, and that was just a tablespoon of ghee or any other. Look, coconut oil would be the only other one that I would suggest that you would use at this stage. Firstly, we will add the whole spices because they take longer to cook. And for me today, that is going to be coriander seed and fennel seed. And if you have cumin, that would likely be the one that you would use too. I don't actually use cumin a lot in summer. It's really pungent. So is hing, but I love hing. So we start with the whole seeds and then pop them in the warm ghee and wait until for about a minute. If you're using mustard seeds as well, that would be a time where you would wait to hear them pop and they would be done. Pop in the rest of the spices plus the rice and the mung. And that's without water. And I'll show you that in a sec. And the reason for that is it will coat the grains and they will integrate those flavors of spices better than if you were to just dump the water in as well. So we coat the grain and also toast the grain, and that helps in its digestion. Then we add the water, and at that point, the work is mostly done, and we put it in an oven-proof dish and into the oven for at least 1 hour and up to 3 hours. So this is something I very often do in the morning at breakfast time. And then I just leave it on a really low heat. I need to top it up with more water so it doesn't dry out and burn. But if it's just 1 hour, then you might just put enough water to cover it. I do have the one that I'm going to show you that's already cooked. I'm just going to pull it out now. And I'll leave that on the screen to review. Oh my God, I can't wait to show you that. That's a noisy oven. Sorry about that. Okay, we're going to get started and I'm going to show you how I cook. And you're cooking along. So please feel free to let me know if you've got any questions. I'm going to stop sharing so that you can see the cook. I'm just moving now to the stove. I probably should have put that on earlier. So I'm just putting on the stove now. And I'll show you what I've got. So I'm using this ceramic cast iron pan. So as I say, I'm at my parents' house. I'm using what they've got here. I'll use something different at home, but hopefully that's... this is just one from Aldi. It's got a really heavy lid, and it is something I'm going to use later, that heavy
Same
lid.
one.
Awesome. It's a great one. Yes, it's really good. It's a big one though. So if the reason I use a different one at home is because I actually need something smaller. Yeah, perfect. All right. So heavy base pan is ideal. Iron is ideal. And no nasty chemicals also ideal. I'm going to now just point the camera down at the stove so that you can see how and what I am going to be doing, and you can join in. And remember, if you're making this a feature meal with friends and family, you might add more spices that you are drawn to. You'll notice pepper wasn't in mine, and definitely Nivedya would have pepper. It just is not something I use in summer. This is my ghee. I do not measure. I've given you a recipe, but I don't follow it. All right, so my ghee is imperfect. I don't care. I made it yesterday, and it's got some particles in it because, as I say, I'm not at home. I didn't have any muslin to strain it properly, but it's just yesterday, so I'm cool with that.
Do you have a recipe on how to make that?
Yeah, yep, yeah, it's so easy. I should do another video because seriously, it is just the easiest thing to do. And I want to, like this year, I want people to see how easy this stuff is. Yeah, so I can also I'll put a video on how to do it, which is not mine, it's one of my teachers. So yeah, because it's expensive, isn't it?
It is when you buy the good stuff.
Yeah, completely. All right, so my pan is warm, the ghee is warm. This stove is actually quite hot. I'm just going to switch to a cooler one. Otherwise, it's going to burn, and I don't want that. Okay, so I've just moved it to the back, if that's okay to see. All right, so I've said half a teaspoon to you of each. I'm just guessing. Okay, I've just popped in coriander seeds, but remember the recipe is pop in your whole seeds first. Mine today are coriander seed and fennel seeds. And I've put, yeah, about half a teaspoon each of those. If you've got the other whole seeds like cumin, mustard seeds that you wanted to pop in now, you could. And we just want that to move around a little bit in the oil. So once that starts sizzling, we know that's starting to cook. We are interested in cooking the spices because that encourages their medicinal value.
Do you use brown or yellow mustard seeds? Does it matter?
I use yellow. It doesn't really matter, I don't think. Yeah, I've only really discovered there's two different types, to be honest, and I have been using both, but I have yellow at the moment. I'm going to place my turmeric now and the other spices in. I love turmeric. It is very heating and drying though. So again, it's just half a teaspoon. We're not doing heaps at this time of year. The hing, if you're very new to hing, you may just do 1/4 of a teaspoon. I love it, but my son wouldn't. So if it was him.
The recipe, do you double the spices or not?
Pardon?
If you double the recipe quantity, do you double the spices or not?
Yes, yes. Okay. What I want you to do eventually is to come to a point where you're adding intuitively. At the moment, follow the recipe, but I really want to encourage, Ayurveda is about returning to your nature. And when you do that, your intuition can be guided. You can, assess whether it's something that you're craving because you need or something that you're craving that you don't need. So eventually I want you to work your way into intuitive. But at the moment, yeah, follow the recipe. If you double the rice, then you would also double the spice. This is the fresh ginger grated. I love it grated. It's kind of delicate though when you grate it. So that's the last thing I've put in. That's ready for my grain now. And I'm putting in the mung. That's a lot of mung. But remember, it's sprouted, so it's tripled in size. I have washed my basmati and I've placed that in now. I'm going to turn that right down. I'm worried about it at this point. I don't want those spices to burn. They will change in medicinal quality if they're burning. So I'm actually going to turn it off because I'm worried. Again, this is not my stove, so I'm just not that confident. And because it's a heavy base pan, it's going to hold the heat while I continue to stir. How are you guys going?
going good, and I love a person who does not get too technical with the half spoons and the full spoons. That's how I cook too.
Yeah,
Just chop-
cool.
I chop and chuck.
Yeah, and you know what? Like I said to you before, primarily, we believe in Ayurveda. You already know what you need, and
It does mean though nothing ever tastes the same, which
Yeah,
my
I
children
know.
actually get annoyed with.
Yeah, I completely understand that, but that's okay because we're constantly changing. We come back to this, you are constantly changing, your needs are constantly changing, and that's okay, but it does make it a bit hard to return to each time. But after time, you do have a little formula that works. Eventually, I really want people to actually use your own hands and like your body feels what you need. All right, so that is now spices, grain, and protein with the ghee. And I'm just now going to cover that with some water. I don't measure. I put 500 mils in. Maybe I should check that, but I'm just covering it. I'm just going to cover it with water now so that it's about an inch of that is covered with water. So that's obviously taken the heat out and it's in a pool of water. It looks pretty rank at this stage, I guess. At this point, I put it in the oven. So you could leave this on a really low heat on the stove. That is a great way to cook. So these are the two options I wanted to offer. You could keep it right now with the lid on a low heat and observe this while you're doing other things by stirring it every now and again. And adding water if you need to. If you have a longer cook, then you're going to need more water. I wanted this to be a cook along, and I acknowledge you might be going at a different pace to me. So just want to spend some time making sure that you're okay. And if you've got questions or you want me to slow down, you just let me know. Because right now what I'm going to do is pop mine in the oven. This is how I like it. I like it in the oven because I don't have to do anything. And it's an electric oven and I feel more confident that I can walk away and go to the garden or just get distracted with whatever else is going on with the knowledge that it's going to be okay in the oven. So literally, that's why I love this particular pan. This is gone in there.
Do you think it tastes differently too when it's in the oven?
I feel like it does.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love roasting things.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, it adds a particular flavor, doesn't it? Is it nutty? It's like a caramelized sort of taste, I guess. I'm not really sure why, but whether it's vegetables or kitchari, yeah, I love it.
It's the sugar and it makes it sweeter. Everything's sweeter.
Yes. And because it's, you're guaranteed the slow cook as well. If it's on the stove, for me, it's can burn on the bottom more likely. And yeah, I worry about it more and I won't leave the kitchen so much. And that's not helpful for a 3-hour cook.
100%.
Yeah, I love it in the oven. And yeah, so that's basically, so for me, that's it. And I walk away and I come back later, but I do have veggies. So I'm just going to hold some space for where you guys are at. And then I'm going to talk to you about the finished product. So how'd you go? And do you have any questions? I can see adding spices, I guess.
I've got my, you probably heard me banging and clanging. To be honest, I have just moved house and I have literally not unpacked the oven gear. I did clean the oven 2 days ago though. So I think I'll keep it on the stove top
Yeah.
and
And
turn
you
the
can
oven
definitely
off.
do that. Yeah, that's a good option. Have you got a heavy base pan?
I've got a heavy base pan, yeah.
Mm.
But you said you often do it in the pressure cooker as well. Is that what I heard?
Oh, I want a pressure cooker. So
Oh, okay.
if we had a pressure cooker, we
Yep.
would do the sauteing exactly the same way of the ghee, spices, grain and protein. But at that point, we put the water in and then in the pressure cooker, and you don't even need to soak the lentils. It's
Really?
so effective at breaking the food down that they say, I don't use it, but my teacher, my Ayurvedic teacher, uses pressure cooker. And yeah, so she doesn't soak, and 30 minutes.
Amazing.
Yeah. So
Slow cooker as well.
slow cooker, but it's pretty much for me the same as the oven.
Yeah.
So you would do everything that we just did and then pop it in the slow cooker and just let it do its thing overnight. And that would be a beautiful way to have a brekkie, kitchari brekkie, or kitchari dinner, because you would have left it over during the day when you're at work or whatever that is for you. Yep, so you could do slow cooker, but I quite like the oven as a slow cooker, I guess. But it's not as slow, because 3 hours, but it doesn't have to be 3-4 hours. It can be just 1 hour. The longer you cook it and the soupier, as in the more broken down the grains and protein are, the better it is for able to digest.
Mm. And Natalie, the protein and the grain is both in the mung, right?
The grains, the rice.
Oh, the rice. I forgot the rice.
Oh, you haven't put the rice in? Yep. So half a cup of that one. And you don't have to, but I do put it in with the ghee and spices so that
I
it
mucked it up.
a coating. Not a worry at all. And you know what? If you've just done the ghee, if you've just done the mung, I quite commonly cook like that too. And I cook out all of the water until I get a mung paste. And it's highly nourishing, and you can put that paste in anything, and my son never notices it. I'm just looking to see if he's listening, and he never notices. So sometimes I do it without rice too. He's looking at me now, and I'll put it through a veggie curry as a really tasty, because you got all the taste of the spices and protein and iron, and there's heaps of incredible stuff in the mung. It's a full, you can have it every day as your iron, protein, magnesium, zinc, fiber, prana.
That's all in the mung.
Yeah.
Wow, it's good, isn't it?
It's really good.
And you just put like that mung paste through other meals. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Almost like a stock.
Yes, it's so delicious. It's so good. Even things like, because we eat non-Ayurvedic food. So like I'll make vegetable fritters, with a little flour, egg, and grated zucchini. And then I'll put the mung paste through that as well. Yeah,
okay, I'm going to do that with my meal today. I'm going to leave the rice out.
This is it. This is like, intuitive cooking. If you've forgotten the rice, maybe there's a reason that you don't need it today,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I must admit, one of the things when cooking with you is there's a lot of noise goes on in your own kitchen, and then it's not as easy to hear you as well. So maybe I'll need earphones or something for another cooker.
Well, that's good to know. Yeah. I'd love to do more cookups. And this is the first one I've ever done as a cook along.
Oh, well done.
So take that as some feedback as well, because that could be something that I encourage you to do next time if you've got those buds.
Water into the mix.
Yep. So I don't.
How much water went in? Because I've got the mung and the rice and all the ghee and the spices done. But then how much water?
About 500 mils.
Oh, okay.
Yep. And well done, you've got your recipe. Not the rice, but the recipe's there.
I just couldn't see the water bit. I could see all the rest of the ingredients.
You could, I just cover it to the point where there's like an inch or so of water above.
Okay, yeah. I'll just chuck some in. That's fine.
Yeah, that's what I do. I chuck it in. But appreciate if it's the first time, then you want to use probably 500 mils. It does also depend on how large your pan is. You can, because you need it covered. You can't have it uncovered. It's going to just dry out in the cook. It needs. Oh yeah, that looks great.
Okay, that's
Oh,
good.
I can't see
That looks
it.
awesome. Good job. Yeah, love it. Do you feel like sharing, Kim? Can we?
Yeah. Mine. I didn't see Mel's.
There's
Oh
Mel's.
la la.
Yeah,
That
good.
does look good.
Nice. Wooden spoons are good.
Hang on.
Yeah, I'm just in love with this strange spatula. I don't even know where I got these ones, these flat ones.
Yeah, that's
Turn
good.
it around like that.
Yeah. As I say, I'm at my mum's. She's got one like that too. So yeah, that's a good one. Oh yay. Okay, it's
Yeah.
cooking away. So
Oh,
that's
your kitchen looks nice, Kim.
and you just moved. Now listen, that's I would turn that down. I'd
I
probably
just have, it's way too high.
perfect. Yeah.
Again, it's a very new kitchen. So, well, it's not a new kitchen, it's an old kitchen, but it's new to
New
me.
for
So
you.
I'm
Yeah, yeah. It
not
takes some
used
time.
to it yet.
Yeah, completely get it. Yep. So you can both, are you going to leave yours on the stove, Mel, or in the oven? Yeah, cool. So you'll put the lid on so that it's, properly cooks. And it could be an hour. I mean, we could be eating at, at 12:15. And Kim, I guess, you want to think about what you're going to put with it. The thing with mung is when I said it's detoxifying, it has actually a scraping effect in your body. And unless you're putting that with something that's sweet like rice, that could be very drying for your body. So you wouldn't have mung on its own, obviously.
I'm going to do it with the fritters, just like you suggested.
Oh, good idea.
That'll be good for the kids.
Yes, yeah, that's why I do it too. But
Yeah.
I do like a really nice vegetable curry that I know he's going to enjoy, and then I pop the mung in that, and he actually just loves it.
So you were saying just making the same thing, but just not with the rice, and then just adding it into anything.
Yep, but reducing it so much that it almost becomes a paste.
Yeah, cool.
And you can blitz it in like a, like I have a Ninja, like a, what are they called? Or
NutriBullet.
Yeah, NutriBullet, that's it. But you can just mash it up as well. Yeah, that one of those. Yeah, I use mine heaps. But yeah, all right. So I want to have a talk to you about how then I eat it, and some fundamentals with garnishing and other optional additions. In the summer, I wouldn't, in the autumn, winter and spring, I put bone broth in mine instead of just water. It's highly nourishing, and you can do that in summer as well. But I feel I need it more in the autumn season. Bone broth.
Can you use if you don't eat meat?
Vegetable broth.
But what can you use that says nourishing?
Yeah, veggie broth's just as nourishing.
That'll be okay.
Yep, I would do that, because don't forget you've already got the mung, and it's highly nutritious. It's just I tend toward losing weight, can't put on weight, so I need more than that in those times in my life, and that's a vata dosha quality that I have. But if you were vata dosha quality and you felt you needed more, then I'd be using just the vegetable stocks and broth. All right, so I want to show you my finished product. I appreciate that you're cooking along though, so I want to respect your process, but I want to show you what this looks like when it's done. I put mine in the oven at about 7 a.m. this morning, and I literally just pulled it out. So this was a different container, because I did 2, and that is my Kitchari. And I'll just give it a stir. You can see it's completely broken down. Yeah, there's nothing in here that looks like rice. You can only see the mung because of the skin. Can you see that? All right, so that is basically a mush.
Yeah.
And I filled that in 2 hours twice with water. So as I say, if you're just doing it for 1 hour, that 500 ml might be enough. But if you were going to do it for 3 hours like I just did, then you would have needed to add more water. Otherwise, it would be dry and burnt right now.
Yeah.
All right, so this is just to show you what the consistency is like. And now I'm going to show you what else I'm going to put with it. And that's seasonal veg that I also roasted.
Yeah.
So today I just used what what we had. And this is zucchini that's in season. The fennel, I like roasting it in, these are just cut in quarters. This was massive before, but obviously when you roast it, it breaks down. Organic carrots, and they are in ghee with salt, hing, turmeric, and fennel. They're just my favorite things to use. And I just use whatever you're drawn to. You said before that you were drawn to cardamom. That's amazing for you. So you just probably want to combine that with salt and
yeah, there's a couple of spices at the moment that I just keep going back to it just to even smell it. It's just there's something about the spices. Yep. Star anise is another one.
Oh, yum. Amazing. So go with gut instinct on all of these things. Look at
Are there any spices that you should avoid?
As I say, I'm not using cumin at the moment because it's too heating. If you feel like you need that extra heat, then that's okay. But with the pitta season, the summer season, I feel dry. I tend to get really dry.
And the other one is fenugreek.
Fenugreek?
Yeah.
You could be using fenugreek. I don't enjoy the taste of that very much. But
I love it.
Well, there you go. It is heating.
Yeah.
And you'd make sure that you had your fennel, coriander seeds, lime to counter that heat.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can really change the impact. So I'm going to show you these individual parts and then show you it together. Oh, I don't cook the broccoli as much. So I took the broccoli out halfway through because, I mean, obviously that would have just gone dry and black. So I mentioned too, these are all the extra parts. I'm going to show you all together, the lime and coriander seed. And I noticed it's very wet. It's quite wet, and I notice there's still quite a bit of ghee in it. So I'm probably not going to put too much ghee in, but I do put extra ghee in as well. So I'm going to make that into a bowl now so you can see what that would look like in this bowl. I'm hoping this little system I've got is working. Maybe I'll elevate that. No, it doesn't work better. I'll put it down. Okay. So I like it to be like a little Buddha bowl for me. Oh, the other thing I've got, which I should do, but I have not done, is silver beet. This is from the garden. It looks a little wilty, but that's because we picked it last night. Now, it's a lot easier to digest cooked, and if you to remove these parts here, it's not to say they're not good for you, but remember, if you're not able to digest them, there's no point. So it's better to cook your silver beet. I haven't, but quite simply, I would boil the kettle, pour hot water over it, and then strain it after a minute. So I'm actually not going to do that for this moment because I want to wrap up, but you will have to imagine that. So if I put it at the bottom, it's going to get cooked anyway because the kitchari will sit on top of it. So I popped silver beet from the garden. We want to look to nature. What is nature in abundance of right now, and go with that. That's going to be good for us. These are bitter and we need them right now. All right, put some kitchari in. We want to eat 2 handfuls of food, usually size-wise. That's about appropriate for our stomach. If you eat more than that, you're going to find it harder to digest. Just going to chop up some of this fennel that was in quarters. I also like to remove the harder parts. So I'm just working over here with fennel. I'm going to just drizzle fennel. And I've just chopped a couple of the broccolini. I'm not going to say this is the most attractive meal. We've got carrots and a couple of the zucchini. And to that, I'm going to place, I love coriander this time of year. So good. And this is the lime. Okay, so that is how I like to eat my kitchari. You will commonly see it without vegetables. For me, I feel like I need the veggies. I need a lot of veggies every day. That really works for me. So that's quite neat to present if you were to have people over. But honestly, I just stir it all up and just, have it like that. That would be
Beautiful. That looks better than Nevada's, don't you think, Mel?
Yeah. It looks so good. Oh, amazing.
So what Nevada does is put they put like I think it might be dulce flakes, which is like a seaweed flake over the top, like yellowy dulce flake. That's so good for you, and it has a salty taste to it, so it's going to have more salt. They also have a chili infused oil that they put on it too, and again, that's that spicy nature, and that makes it more pungent. And again, they put the black pepper in the cook, which you can do. You can do all of those things, but it's, for me, not needed in summer. The other thing you might do if you are looking for impact is grate some more ginger and place that on the meal as well. So grated ginger, it's just something very special to me about grated ginger. That's sort of, I love it so much, that juicy, pungent flavor. Oh my God. I've got to eat them. So good. I love it so much. And that's my favorite meal. I really hope that was something that was helpful.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
And when you're doing it, Nat, for, like a 3-day fast, do you still add your vegetables?
I personally do.
Yeah.
My experience has been when I have just eaten kitchari without vegetables for 3 days, I get constipated.
Yeah.
Because it's too drying to my system.
Yeah.
If you don't tend to constipation, maybe that wouldn't be an issue for you. For me, I just need the extra amount of fiber, but it does compromise what is the intention of the 3-day kitchari fast, which is to minimize the diversity of food that you have so your gut gets a rest. But for me, it creates problems, so I add veggies. And if you were doing a fast, it might be that you grate up the vegetables and put it in to cook for the 2 hours, for example, and it'll really break them down. And if you would just use the same vegetable, then it would be a mono fast still, which is back to what is the objective of the 3-day fast, which is to, again, just simplify your diet for 3 days to reset your digestive system.
Yep.
And do you have to make the kitchari fresh, or can you make a batch of it and have it over a few days?
strictly speaking on Ayurvedic principles, fresh, but that's not realistic, is it?
Yeah.
Unless you've got the pressure cooker, because that makes it extremely easy. However, I don't, and therefore I will have it the next day. I sometimes have Kitchari 2 or 3 times in the one day, and I've just cooked it once. So I've popped it in the fridge, for example, to have it for dinner. And then sometimes I'll have it the next day, but it's not really recommended. And the reason is it's the vital life force in the food that diminishes. Even in the second time that you've had it, it's got less. And then the third time you've had it, it's got even less. So you'd only do it for one day. You wouldn't do it for multiple days. And that is, you'd have it the next day. You could. I mean, look, we live in the real world, don't we? You know, where life is busy. So of course it's fine.
Just thinking it's such a good, easy option for lunch to take to work that it's there.
I mean,
and yeah,
it's going to be better than buying your meal at a shop, because they probably have a shelf life on their food that's longer than that. So yeah, don't hesitate. Eat it the next day for sure. If possible, eat it, make it fresh. But yeah, don't stress if you can't. So sattva is the quality that we're interested in, and that's the high energy or pranic quality in food, sattva. And it's something that I can talk about at another time. But yeah. Any other questions?
I don't think so. So you could add some other little bits and pieces in if you had those inclinations to for those herbs.
Yeah. Yep. You can pretty much add whatever you like. That's really a foundation, if you like. That's a simple kitchari, and then you can play around with what works for you.
Thank you.
Absolute pleasure. Absolute pleasure. The game changer for me was when I did a course. So I've been studying Ayurveda and putting it into place in my life. It wasn't until my teacher did videos where she taught us how to cook. And I was like, oh, God, now I get it. So that's what I wanted to do today. And I'll do more. And if you're interested in, seeing me one-on-one, I'm obviously available for that. But I'm just also really grateful just to connect like this. So thanks so much for joining.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thanks, Natalie.
Kim, were you on the Facebook event? I didn't see everybody on there. Is that something that you saw?
Mel shared the link with me.
Okay, because I'm just going...
The Facebook invitation.
Yeah, because I'm going to put some follow-up in that event, including the recording if you want to come back to it, but also the reference on where to buy things, fact sheet with the recipe on it, whatever else I can think of just to stay in touch probably, but it won't be forever. It'll just be a couple of posts. And thanks guys. I really enjoyed your time. I hope you enjoy your lunch. If you can, take a pic and send it to me. I'd love to see it.
Will do.
Feedback.
Thank you.
Absolute pleasure. Have a great day. Bye.
See you.